Hello, Siren here, talking to you today about my new track Virtue. I'm going to be going through a breakdown of the track and talking about a few different elements within the project. I'm going to start by talking about the hats. As you can see, I've got quite a few layers going through the project here, following an 8 sort of 16 bar pattern, whereas the start of the next 8 here on 9, I've got the next hat coming in, and again here on 17. I'm following a consistent quarter note and eighth note pattern throughout, and when I need to accentuate a certain part in the track, I've got the 16th notes coming in. I've got these hi-hat loops that I've used throughout the drop sections of the track, and also this drummer kit here, which is just something that's within Logic. You select the element of the drum that you want to use, and I use it as a drum fill and to keep that rolling momentum of the hats. I'll play to you here this section of the hats where you can hear them all together. And I'll just solo them so you can hear how they all sound. You can find with some hat samples, for example, this hat is just a sample from Splice, that they can be too transient based and you just can't hear much of the body from the hat. There are various different plugins that you can use, but I use OTT, which is a multi-band compressor, and I use it just to give that little bit more energy to the hat. In terms of processing, the EQ, anything below 300, sometimes 250 hertz, you can take off as no bass is needed and they can sit in that higher frequency. Now here looking at the kicks, I have got them layered up and I'm following a structure of having a transient, a body and a tail. I'll play you here the kicks so you can hear them. And with everything else. This is quite a minimal track, so there's more room to have a powerful kick, more room in the frequency. With the kick here, you can see that I'm using it to create energy and tension going into the drop, which I'll just play you now. In terms of processing, you can see with this kick here, there's absolutely no processing on there. That's because it's a kick that I used in another track of mine that I made. And so I did all the processing then, and then I sent it off to get mastered. These two here, what you can see is I've used isotope trash on there, which is to create some depth and texture. And I've also put a tiny bit of distortion on. In terms of processing here, I have, you can see on this transient shaper, upped the attack and brought the sustain down slightly. With the EQ, anything below 40 hertz can be taken off, and I've dipped mine around here between 300 and 600 because that's where you can get some boxy frequencies which you wouldn't want in your mix. Now we will look at the snares, which again I've layered them similarly to the kicks. With the snares, they provide energy and character to your track, so you really need to make sure you've got good control in the top end because otherwise the overall drum mix won't sound very good. I'll play you my snares here, and I've got these. The initial hit of the snare comes from the transient layer, which fills the mid tops in the frequency, and then the tail is what sits in the high frequency end. It's your high frequency content, and it sits from the upper mids to the high end. In terms of processing, anything below 220 hertz can come off, and then they've got that upper end of the frequency to sit in, and they need that room. In this track, I've got 3 different cymbals throughout. I'll just play you here because they're all together. So I've got two crash cymbals, which are your accents and indicate a turn in the track. And then I've got a ride cymbal, which has a more sustaining sound. Coming down now to talk about the bass, or in terms of this project, the basses. I've got quite a few variants going through. For my basses, I use SIREN, which I'll open up. It's an advanced wavetable synthesizer and it has loads of presets. You can also get additional presets, which I either get from Splice or from sample packs that I bought from other artists. Here you can see two wavetable oscillators, so you can get a big range of sounds. What I'll do is I'll just play my basses here. Standard. Okay, so you can hear a slight variant in that one there. So here on SIREN again, you can see you've got your LFOs down here, which is your low frequency oscillator. And you use it to control the filter cutoff, and it modifies the sound created by the original oscillator. So that's actually one way that I've created variants within my bass. Another variation that I've used within my basses is that I have automated the LFO by a quarter note or half note to change how the filter affects the sound, which you can see I've done it on this one here. Another thing just to mention is that another way of varying your bass, which is what I've done, is that the way you can adjust these wavetables, and that gives a different sound. A waveform can sound different based on its shape. So for this, what you saw there, the sine wave, that has a more roll and flow in the sound that's created. I'll just play the bass in terms of listening to the whole track. In terms of processing with the sub here, anything below 30 I have cut off. In terms of processing with the sub, you can see anything here below 30 I've taken off, and then also all of this high end I've taken off. And I've done this surgical dipping here, because this is just where in the frequency table you want your subset, and then your other basses can sit in this sort of mid-range here. With this variation of the bass here, you can see I'm allowing it to sit in the whole spectrum of the frequency, and I've just cut off below 40 Hertz and dipped it here at just over 3000 to control that sound in there. One of the plugins that I really like and I wanted to mention is Track Spacer. It's a compressor that works based on the frequency of the incoming signal, and I just find it's a more transparent way of sidechaining. A few other elements of the track we can talk about are the plucks here, which are just creating a bit of melody I'm using to build energy and tension within the track. What I did with that was just created that empty MIDI region, and then with the bass note of the whole project, which is F, I then built around that to create the rest of the sound, which I'll just play to you. And then here you can hear the build. And that's just another element added to the track. Throughout, I've obviously got a few more effects, and I found a vocal sample online, which is here. Again, these are all just creating depth to your project and adding tension and creating that overall sound that you were looking for. I'll play now the track from the breakdown into the second drop. So that's how I made this track, some of the different elements that are in there. If you have any questions about anything else you've seen in the processing that I've done, then just let me know.